Hello, uglies. No, I'm just kidding. I wanted to do the intro to the Boulet brothers. You're all beautiful people out there. I'm going to talk about a film today that's on Shudder. I just recently started watching the Boulet brothers, Dragula, and it has become one of my favorite programs that I have ever seen. The Boulets are so hyper talented and incredible at drag, music, creating horror short films. It's just such an amazing program that if you have a Shudder subscription and you haven't watched it yet, drop what you're doing and watch it because it's so well made and so well crafted and immersive. The Boulets are two people who care so deeply about the horror community, representation in the horror community, representation for drag, LGBTQ members. What I was really impressed with in the season I'm watching now is that you have members doing drag, you have men, you have women, you have transgender women. There's people from all backgrounds that are doing this. And so it's a really great program to watch. It's hilarious. The costumes are so incredible. The amount of time and effort. It really is a beautiful art form. And I'd recommend if you haven't seen it and you're a person who loves horror or makeup or anything that goes into crafting really incredible pieces of art, I would definitely recommend checking it out. So that was my pitch to watch the Boulets. Today I'm going to talk about another film on Shudder. This is a movie that I saw the poster for that I did not see, but someone who I really appreciate, Isabelle Fuhrman, is in this movie, who I'm going to talk about two of her films on the channel. I'm going to talk about this film today and then a later review, which I'm going to talk about because I watched these movies back to back. I had an Isabelle Fuhrman double feature, and this film is called The Last Thing Mary Saw. It's Pride Month, and I decided I wanted to talk about some films that had LGBTQ characters in them. I try to do that on my channel already, and obviously there needs to be more of a spotlight to films like this. So during Pride Month, I'm going to try to do some more films that are LGBTQ affiliated. But this movie was really good and I enjoyed it a lot. There's been a lot of Shudder originals recently that I haven't been the hugest fan of. And this was one that I really enjoyed the atmosphere. I love this time period and I look forward to talking about it. The Last Thing Mary Saw is directed by Edoardo Vitaletti. Winter 1843. A young woman is under investigation following the mysterious death of her family's matriarch. Her recollection of events sheds new light on the ageless forces behind the tragedy. So the film introduces us to Mary, played by Stefanie Scott, and she's in this room talking to a police investigator, and she has this really big, like, black blindfold on, and she's talking to them about these events that had happened. So you know something has occurred. She's got blood running down where her eyes are, and she's telling them about what was going on in the house. And so then you cut back to this home, which the description gives away kind of what happens not until like maybe the middle of the movie. The movie's about an hour and a half runtime. You're introduced to Mary, and this family is like hyper conservative Christian, and you can tell that the grandmother, who's the leader of the family, is really into like people knowing their Bible verses, studying the Bible, forcing these religious beliefs on these people because it is the time period. And unfortunately, living in this time period, especially if you were a queer person, would be a nightmare. You probably wouldn't even live long enough to be able to experience a relationship with someone that you loved, and it's terrible. And movies like this really shine a light into how awful these time periods are. So you have our lead character, Mary, and she is interested in and forms a relationship with the woman who is working as their maid, played by Isabelle Fuhrman from the Orphan film, and she is such a talented actress. I can't stress this enough. I'm so glad, I know everyone knows her from Orphan, but I'm so glad that she's getting into making independent films because she's so fucking talented. This movie, she is so great. There's another movie I'm going to talk about soon called The Novice that she was in that was absolutely incredible, and I would highly recommend you check that out too. One of my favorite performances I've seen in a while, but the two of them have an ongoing relationship together and they're in love, but they realize that in this certain circumstance that there is no way for them to have this relationship under their current circumstances. And so there's a man who works that he watches guard for the house, and they don't let him in the house, but he stands outside with a gun, and he's kind of an outcast, he's a little weird, and they realize that if they take advantage of making a relationship with him and kind of working with him, that they should be able to find some times to spend together. Well, the film really falls on, like, they end up getting caught in certain circumstances by the grandmother, and she tortures them in these horrible ways where she'll like make them kneel down on these like wood planks to where their knees get all scratched up because they're on them for 10 plus hours, reciting the same prayers over and over and over again. The film is really at its core about the struggle of these two people trying to love one another in an environment that seemingly is not going to allow them to be together. It was a really difficult watch at times, but it was also fascinating. And obviously, the film being on Shudder, it's touted as a horror movie. It's a really slow burn character drama, but there's also a supernatural element laid into that where the grandmother passes away, as the description says. Things with the men in the household start going out of control, where they start to kind of be a little bit more aggressive towards things. Isabel Furman's character, before the grandmother passes away, she comes at her and like hits her throat to where she can no longer speak, and so that adds another element into it. You have the introduction of Rory Culkin's character, which is a fascinating element of the film, where he plays this like burn victim who comes to deliver chickens because the chickens on their farm are starting to get sick and they're not able to use it for food. And he is very seedy and strange, and I don't want to give away stuff with his character. The film dives into the mystery behind the grandmother. There's this book involved that the stories in the book have a story sort of hinting at a lesbian relationship, that the outcome was not good, and you're given hints into that throughout the film. And the film really relies heavily on the performances and the atmosphere, and this movie has great atmosphere. I know people use the term slow burn a lot when they talk about films. This movie has a slower pace because of the time period, but it's so atmospheric, and through the sound design and the soundtrack, it really kind of carries you along this journey, and it's like reading a really incredible book. I really enjoyed this. Obviously, our two lead characters are fantastic. The performances that they give are so amazing. Their dynamic together as a couple really works. You see this like ignited love for these two people who care very deeply for each other. I enjoyed this movie a hell of a lot. The cinematography was beautiful. The third act twist of the movie is insane. It goes into some very dark places. I don't want to give it away though, because I think it's worth a watch. And if you're looking for a Shudder original film, this is one I'd highly recommend. I feel like, I've said this a couple times recently, Shudder with a couple of their more recent releases, their original films, I haven't really been that impressed with. But this movie was fantastic. It was so well directed and well edited, shot, performed. And I would recommend checking it out if you haven't yet. So have you seen The Last Thing Mary Saw? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was fantastic. It was well acted and well performed, and I hope that you like it as much as I did. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot. Lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.